Welcome to the Breakthrough Success Podcast, helping you achieve that breakthrough you've always been looking for in your business. And now your host, Mark Guberti.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Guberti, and this is the podcast for marketers and small business owners who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. I am very excited about this show. For episode 55 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast, we are going to talk about how we can triple our reading speed and comprehension with our guest, Debbie Drum. Debbie is a full-time marketer, content creator, and author. She has self-published several of her books on Amazon under various pen names, but recently published her new book, Read Better, Faster, under her own name, and the insights in that book are going to be the focus of today's episode. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Debbie to the show.
Thank you so much, Mark. Wow, you're so enthusiastic. I love it. It's contagious.
Debbie, thank you for taking the time to share with us, just give us an idea of all the great insights you have in your book. And I really love, people know if they've listened to a lot of episodes, they know I'm such a big bookworm. So before we go really deep into how we can read more books at such a faster pace and actually comprehend them, why did you write your book, Read Faster, Better?
Well, as in everything that I create, was originally designed to help myself. So if I have some kind of problem that I am working through or researching, it's probably a problem that a lot of other people have, right? So I do a lot of work in book publishing, and there's tons of problems that you need to solve when you're publishing a book, like what cover, I need an editor, I need a proofreader, all these problems. Well, the same thing goes for another popular topic of the umbrella topic of productivity and, reading faster, writing faster. People want this information. They want to make their brain almost like a computer. Right? And another popular book is Unlimited Memory. How do you memorize and remember things and never forget them? So people love this stuff, and they want to be more productive. They want to be more efficient, and they want to be at the top of their game. And it just so happens that reading fast has always been a struggle for me, which of course puts me at a disadvantage because I'm not able to read the books as fast as maybe my competitors are, or I'm just behind the eight ball having to rely on audio and video. And at one point, I was just so frustrated that I wanted to solve the problem. So in researching and solving the problem, I decided to write it all down so that I can help other people too.
Debbie, thank you for sharing with us the story behind why you decided to write your book, Read Faster, Better. And one of the things that people love to hear about are online tools that can help them achieve a certain goal. So for social media, there's plenty of them, like Hootsuite, Viral Tag, a bunch of other ones. But what are some tools that we can use to help develop our speed reading skills?
Sure. Well, most people have this one amazing tool, and the new tool is actually going to be coming out and releasing in October, which I'm really, really excited about. And most people have an iPhone. Majority of people have an iPhone. And then, of course, all of you other folks out there who have the Samsung, we like you too. But yeah, the point is that most people have the tools right available in their fingertips, and that is a phone. And that is my, secret of how I am doing this and tripling my reading speed. So and if likewise, if you have a tablet or an iPad, any kind of electronic device like that, that will also work perfectly fine.
Now, we're going to go really deep into some of the ways that we can read faster, but one of the things that people do is sometimes they'll get in that act where they're able to read faster, but then you ask them about the book a week later and there's a bunch of question marks. So when we read something, how do we retain it even as we continue to learn to speed read?
Yeah, I mean, when you're consuming a lot of information, then that becomes the challenge because you need to remember what you're reading. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. And if you think about it, we rarely forget fiction stories, right? If somebody asked us, oh, what is Pride and Prejudice about? We probably read it 20 years ago, but we're going to at least be able to say the premise. We're going to be able to say the characters and everything like that. Why does that happen? Why is that embedded in our brain? It's because we wrapped around a story and visuals in our head behind these fiction books. Well, you can actually do that with nonfiction as well. You just have to put a little bit more effort into it, right? So you can create a whole story. Let's say, for instance, you have to remember, principles of a book, like 10 principles of a book, or the 8 habits, right? Or the 7 habits. You can take each one, create a visual story around that, and then if you take the time to do that, you'll never forget it. You literally never forget it. So it's the same concept of remembering names, right? A lot of people say, oh, I'm horrible with names. You're not horrible with names. And the people who are not horrible with names, they didn't wake up with this, or they weren't born with this huge advantage that they can remember somebody's name. It's all about them using their brain and using some kind of process to remember a name. So, for instance, and it's all about wrapping a visual, and it's often, if you listen to the experts, they'll say like an exaggerated visual, right? So you can say, I use the example, let's say you meet somebody named Jennifer and she likes to dance, right? So what I would do is I would take 2 seconds and be like, okay, I'm going to remember Jennifer Grey and Dirty Dancing, and I'll never forget Jennifer's name, right? So here I came up with a process that will never allow me to forget because I made that connection. And you can really do that with anything. You just have to kind of take the time to do it, and it works. It's great.
And I really love that idea of the visuals. I mean, that really amazed me when I first came across it. I actually implemented it the day after. I was in a class where I just wanted to see how this would work, and there were certain concepts that were being explained. It was just easier for me to remember those concepts, and I was thinking, wow, this would have such a great impact if I use this when I use it, when I'm reading my next book. But one of the main, one concern people have, and this comes more from my brother because he is very religious about making sure his eyes are as good as possible. So some people see speed reading as something that could possibly damage your eyes. So how can we speed read without creating that damage?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, and I don't know if that's true or not, that, it could possibly well be true. Looking at a computer all day can damage your eyes. Watching TV can damage your eyes. So what are we supposed to do? Not do those things? So, it might be true. But the one thing that, I'll say about eyes is that, and I know this for me, because when I would read, when I was a slow reader, one of the reasons why I was reading slow is because my eye, just like any body part, any muscle in your body, it needs to be trained, right? So you can't just, lift anything you want. You have to train your muscles. You have to train your biceps, your triceps, everything to be strong. And that's the same thing with your eyes as well. I'm actually reading a book right now. Gosh, I'm going to open up my Kindle to shout out the name. You might want to check this out too, because it's really good, and it talks about eye health and eye behavior. How if you get lazy with your eyes, then your eyes will fail you in years. So people wear glasses to compensate their bad eyesight, where in actuality, wearing glasses all the time is not the best thing for your eyes because your eyes are getting trained to be lazy. It's called 10 Years Younger by Kylie Ansett. It's kind of a small cover on my phone, but it's really good. 10 Years Younger. If you're interested in like learning the natural things, organic things that you can do to look younger, feel younger, and feel better about yourself. So that's a little plug. But my point is that the reason why some people don't read fast is because their eye muscles aren't developed, right? So I would get very tired after reading like 3 or 5 pages. Whereas the method that I teach, the BuzzRead method inside of Read Better Faster, you're actually training your eyes to go back and forth. And I don't really see the harm in that, honestly. Maybe looking at a screen over years could damage your eyes, potentially. But moving your eyes back and forth and being able to have like better peripheral vision when you're reading something will make you a faster reader, right? So, ideally you want to start to not read every single word and just get the gist of, and there's speed reading courses out there. There's people that know way more than I do, but essentially that's what you're doing. You're training your eyes so that you're able to go through things a little bit faster and you're not getting as tired because those muscles are being worked. That's the point.
Debbie, thank you for sharing those insights on how we can train our eye muscles and avoid any type of damage because the glasses, I've heard that from my brother also because he's very serious into that, and I'm definitely trying to reduce the amount of time that I wear glasses. Like, you never see me wear glasses in videos or things like that, but I do have to wear them on occasion. So I don't want to make this about eyes all of a sudden. So one of the things that you also mentioned is that you listen to audiobooks because that helps you in certain situations where reading a book is just not practical. And I was wondering if you could share some of the opportunities you use to listen to audiobooks, because then we can use those opportunities to fill our minds with more knowledge.
No, I think that audiobooks are great. I also think that, being a person who used to travel a lot, like listening to audiobook while driving and working out, that is great. The disadvantage of audiobooks are, number one, not every book is in an audiobook, right? So we have to rely on that. Number two is sometimes we don't like the narrator, and that's a big thing. I'm in the book publishing world, the independent publishing world. I go to conferences all year round. I was just at 2 in the last 2 months. I was at the Book Expo event in New York this year at the Javits Center, and narrators actually help sell books. And that's something that I found interesting. But anyway, another thing is that when you're just listening, you need to be actively listening. So if you're doing 100 other things like paying for groceries and, just your mind is kind of multitasking, you're not fully engaged with that book. So you might, it's great for fiction and you don't really need to hear every single detail when it comes to fiction a lot of times. But for nonfiction and you want to grasp certain points and you're trying to listen to 10 key concepts and you're not seeing them, you're not writing them down, you're not seeing it, that might be a disadvantage for you in retaining that information. So that's why with my method, we're actually using audio and we're using visual at the same exact time, and that's the way that it works the best.
And I definitely see your point with the audiobooks, because I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm on the exercise bikes, and there are some moments when I'm so focused on the exercise where a few minutes pass by. At other times, I'm trying to listen to the audiobook and take notes, but then that results in me biking a little slower. So I see how obviously multitasking comes back again, where In many cases, it's better to just do and stick with one thing as opposed to just trying to do two things simultaneously. And one thing that I found really interesting is I'm more of a physical book guy. I like the paperbacks, but your book really started to make me look at a different area and look more towards digital. And I'm wondering if you prefer reading digital books or physical books with this approach, and what's your mindset about that?
Yeah, I think it's so funny because if you literally everyone I ask, mostly, my friends and even people I meet at conferences, they're all like, I love to have a physical book in my hand. And I think that's partially to feel that sense of tradition, but also to be like, oh, yeah, sure. All the millennials are digitalizing everything. I'm going to stick with my physical, right? I think it's kind of like people feel like they're kind of a rebel when they stick with kind of the old, not old, but more traditional ways, right? And people are still buying physical books. They are, even though in this digital age, physical books are not going anywhere because that's the majority of the opinion, believe it or not. At least that's what's in the studies. For me, being a person who reads very slowly with traditional physical books, not really my cup of tea because, yes, my method does revolve around digital books and Kindle books or PDFs even, and having them on your device. The thing that really struck me about the method that I developed, it's called the buzz read method, is that it actually helped me become a faster reader when I wasn't using that method. So while the method does revolve around digital books, it also can and does work with physical books as well.
And these methods definitely do work with physical books. I did read Debbie's book, and their sound with physical books. There are a few more chapters based on digital, but one of the things that really sold me on focusing on the digital is that I read anywhere from 10 to 30 books every single month. So let's say that's 120 to around 360. And if I were to buy all of those paperbacks, that would easily be anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000, while Kindle Unlimited or something like that would just make it $120. So anyone who is still on the fence of whether they want to completely go digital or just stick with the paperbacks, you save a lot of money and get access to a lot more books.
Yeah, and not also, if you're bringing up the money aspect too. I know that we kind of passed audiobooks, but that's another disadvantage of audiobooks is that they're expensive. You are paying for that service. And you also, I know that Amazon has a deal where you can buy the audio version, you could clump it together and it raises the price of the book. But again, that's to the point where you're also spending more money to have that audiobook available to you.
And you said that Amazon also has the ability to, like, when you're in the Kindle app, they read the book to you. So does that then function as an audiobook also?
I don't know if it reads if that's part of the Amazon app or that's like just the phone functionality.
Okay, I don't want to deviate too far from that, but I just wanted to throw that extra question out there because it sounded like something that they might have. But we've shared a lot of great hacks, and you've given us a lot of amazing hacks. And I'm wondering if you have any additional speed reading hacks for us that you would like to share.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. You have to practice it and do it. And if you are a slow reader, I do encourage you to check out the book because it has already helped so many people. I'm getting, real feedback from real people saying that I've pretty much changed their life. And when I discovered all this that I'm doing here, it is life changing because now so many doors are back open for you. So if you want to learn something and become an expert, because that's especially innovators and entrepreneurs, you need to constantly be learning and honing your skills. If you don't, things are constantly changing. And if you want to be getting paid, keep getting paid for your expertise, then you're going to need to be on that continuing education stream, right? There's no like, oh, I know everything. My job is done. I'm just going to wake up every day and not learn anything new. It's not going to happen. And if you're able to read fast and get through information, then that is directly correlated with the amount of money that you can potentially make. And that, for me at least, was a huge advantage of being able to read faster because, like you, Mark, you're not the only person who I know who's very smart and reads. It's directly related with, being a smart person who makes good decisions and the education that you get from books. So, and I talk to a lot of people that say, yeah, I'm a slow reader, I don't read. But to me, that's not acceptable. Nothing is acceptable. If you can't do something good or you're mediocre at it, there's always a way that you can get better. And this is the one thing that I found that it opens so many doors and it's so exciting. And I just want to help as many people as I possibly can.
Debbie, thank you for sharing with us some of those additional reading hacks that we can use to speed the reading process up. And I'd like to advance to the next portion of the interview. And these are a few questions I like to ask everyone because we usually get a lot of motivational answers from them. And the first question is, what is one big challenge that you have faced along your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge?
Well, so let me ask you, is your audience a lot of entrepreneurs or like what kind of people listen to your podcast?
A lot of the people are entrepreneurial based and they're trying to basically increase their productivity and get more of the results they're looking for. And the focus is on people with online businesses.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, it's all about exactly what I did with this book, exactly what I do with a lot of the products that I make and develop is if I have a problem, again, it's always turning it around and looking at it in a way where, number one, how do you solve that problem? And number two is how can you, then there's probably always a reason a way that you can, how can you make money with helping other people solve this problem? The great thing about being an entrepreneur is that you can decide your own path. There's no written rule book where you have to do A, B, C, D in order to make money. So any kind of challenge that you encounter, so let's say, for example, I had a major challenge with public speaking and doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I would get very nervous. My heart would beat very fast. My stomach would get sick. Like I would physically get sick if I had to stand up in front of somebody. I'd have to literally mentally prepare every single word that I would say in order to not feel like I look like an idiot. And again, I don't know why that was an issue for me. Maybe confidence had a lot to do with it. So what I did is I read books and listened to books and I watched other people, how their mannerisms were, how relaxed they were, how they spoke, how they projected their voice, how I did Toastmasters where I had to force myself to get in front of a bunch of people. And the worst part about it is that, I'm very, very sensitive to this right now, or always for a long time, is the amount of ums that people say that are very distracting, and they're definitely a horrible quality if you're a speaker. So I used to have that problem. I used to say, when I would listen to myself speak and I listened to the recordings, I'd say, you know. And these are just fillers that you kind of have to stop doing. You have to notice that you're doing them and stop them and replace them with nothing. So there is always a way to take any type of challenge that you have, research it, learn about it, get good at it, practice it, and then help other people, because other people are also struggling as well. And you can say, hey, look, I used to, there I go again, that it happens, right? It happens, and you'll still make those mistakes. But the point is that you learn and you can see it and you can help other people. And you can tell them, I used to be in your shoes and here I am today. This is exactly what I did. And I could teach you how to do it too.
Debbie, thank you for sharing with us that one challenge and how you, that powerful lesson that you learned from it. And throughout this interview, we've been talking about your book, Read Faster, Better. You also mentioned the book 10 Years Younger, which is something that I'm too young to appreciate the title of. And as I mentioned before, I am such a big bookworm. So other than those books that I just mentioned, that we've talked about throughout the interview, are there 3 great books that you can think of right now?
Yeah, I looked at that question, and I think that everybody's opinion of great books is their own opinion, So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recommend one book that I think that every human being should read, because if everyone reads this one book, I think the world will be a better place. And that is the book, The 4 Agreements. The beginning is kind of really wacky and out there, but once you get into learning what the 4 agreements are, it's totally life-changing. And especially, I don't know if I want to say especially for women, but women tend to make assumptions and they believe their assumptions to be true, and it's just preposterous how we convince ourselves that something is true and it's really not, based on an assumption. And and one of the main principles of that book that I learned and I try to live by is don't make assumptions, because most of the time you're probably wrong. And if you are going to make assumptions, then make them in a way that doesn't hurt you, that only benefits you. So let's just give an example. Let's just say, some jerk on the road cut you off today and you're just irritated because you don't like to be cut off. It's, he put you in harm's way, whatever it is. You can say something like, well, he's probably going through some kind of hardship in his life and he wasn't thinking properly, and that's why he went ahead and cut me off by accident. So you can say that. You can say that assumption, or you can say something like, well, this guy is probably a jerk, and he's the worst husband in the world, and he was the worst father in the world, and he's just a creep, right? Those are both 2 assumptions. We don't know anything about this guy who cut us off. So err on the side of, just give him a pass, and we'll live happier lives if we all just did that.
Debbie, thank you for that great book recommendation. That is definitely a powerful book. I've heard a lot of people, past guests, recommend that book. So that is definitely a great one for anyone who hasn't read it already. And Debbie, I've asked you a lot of questions throughout this interview, as the nature of these types of interviews. But what is one question that you believe we need to be asking ourselves more often?
I would say the one question is, what's next? Because there's always something that could be next. And there's always an opportunity around the corner. And we could be such busy people, that's fine. And we could take breaks. We could watch our Netflix. We can chill out sometimes and not work all the time. But there's always a moment in time where you have to like bounce back and be like, okay, I'm going to take this next step. I'm going to learn this next thing, or I'm going to get involved with this community, or I'm going to do something that makes my life more powerful and impactful. So, impactful, I should say. And that's pretty much it. That would be my big question.
Debbie, thank you for sharing with us that one question that you feel we need to be asking ourselves more often, and for sharing all of your great insights throughout this episode. And we've talked a lot about your book, Read Faster, Better, which I think is a great read. I recommend it to all Breakthrough Success listeners. And I'm wondering if you could share with us right now where we can find that book and where we can also find you on the web.
Sure. It's actually Read Better Faster. I know it's kind of like a tongue twister.
I had it for the rest of it, I think.
You know what? I think people won't have an issue finding it because it'll probably show up both, so I'm not worried. So you can go ahead and pick that up on Amazon. Just, either put it in as Read Better Faster or Debbie Drummond, you'll see it. And then I have a special bonus that if anybody who does buy the book, you can just email me at help@debbiedrum.com. That's HELP@debbiedrum.com. And I have a cool bonus where I'm going to be giving you 49 plus of my best productivity tips. I'm a productivity junkie, kind of probably like a lot of your listeners. I love tools that help me be more productive. And I put all these together. So I want to offer that to you. So I'll send you that link so that you can get those productivity tools and tips if you do end up purchasing my book.
Debbie, thank you for sharing those resources with us. Breakthrough Success listeners, if you're looking to get those resources and all the notes to this episode, you can find those at markguberti.com/E55. Debbie, it was such a pleasure to have you on the Breakthrough Success podcast.
Thank you so much. It was great being here.
To never miss an episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on whatever player you are using. If you are a regular listener and haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this podcast a review or a rating. Two ways you could do this are through markguberti.com/iTunes or markguberti.com/Stitcher. That ends this episode. Don't forget, dream big, achieve greatness, and unlock your potential today.
Want me to mention you in a future episode? All you have to do is leave a quick review for my podcast on iTunes and email me, mark@markguberti.com. I'll then mention you and your website in a future episode. You can leave that review by heading over to markguberti.com/iTunes.
This podcast is a production done by Mark Guberti. For more insights, head on over to markguberti.com.